Welcome to the long version of how to build a bench. In this version, I will show you all of the mistakes I made and what I did to fix them. So I have built both a 21-inch and a 32-inch bench, just like this. And planing your boards are optional. I bought one at a garage sale. So I went ahead and planed each of my boards before I even made the cuts. These are scrap pieces of lumber that I happen to have on hand. I ran each side through the planer 3 times, and I have replaced the blades on this planer, but each of my boards do end up with a little bit of a ridge on the top of each one, but I figure it's still better to use the planer rather than to sand them all down. I think it just gives it a nice crisper look, but if you want to go for the more farmhouse look, don't worry about planing your boards. Here I'm cutting 10-degree angles on the legs of the bench. I love this compound miter saw. It does so many different things. There are different ways that you can make these cuts, but this is the way that I did it. What I'm doing is I'm making a cut on each end of the 4 legs, and then I'll go back and measure and do the opposite end, and I'm cutting them parallel, meaning the cuts go the same direction on the board. So after I did that first one, then I can go ahead and use that as a measuring tool for the other 3 legs. Now I'm doing the same 10-degree angle on the braces that go across the legs, and this time the cuts will be angled in. You can barely see here, but both cuts are angled in. And I cut my braces at 12 inches. I feel like maybe 13 inches would be a better length for those. Now this time for this video, I am doing a 21-inch long bench. Personally, I kind of prefer the 32-inch bench that I did, but this one is super cute too. It just all depends on the space you have for your bench. And I like to sand each piece before I actually build. I just find that that's an easier way to do it for me. So I start with 80 grit sandpaper, and you can see there my ridges from my planer. But they actually come off pretty easy, especially with this 80 grit sandpaper. But first I'm going to rip my boards. Again, this is an optional step. I wanted that more sleek look, so I'm taking about 1/4 inch off each edge of the 2x4 and ending up with a 3-inch wide piece. So after I ripped one side of each leg and the brace, then I'll go through and I'll rip the second side. Now I'm ripping the inside part of each of the boards for the bench seat. Then I'll put them together, decide which side I want to be on top, and make sure that they fit together right. I see that tiny little gap in the middle. I don't know if it's bad enough to do anything about. Then I go ahead, I've already sanded with my 80 grit, now I'll do my 120. And I wipe each board after I've sanded it. And what this does is raises the grain and makes your next sanding process more efficient, and you end up with a smooth finish. And see that inner bow is kind of bothering me, so I'm trying to figure out which board it is that's causing the problem that's bowing out. And I go ahead and I rip that piece again, but watch what happens. Now it's even worse. So what I'm realizing is the outside edge is bowed. So of course, when you place that against your fence, the inside edge is going to be bowed too. So I'd seen this trick where someone took a level and taped it to the board and used that to come up with a straight edge. Of course, if you have a jointer, that would be even better. But this works in a pinch. It's not perfect, but it worked just fine. So now I just run it through the table saw with that straight edge against the fence. Yay, now it works. Sits nice and flush. Now I'm sanding with 220 grit. This is the highest sand grit that I'll go on this project. And now I'll go ahead and use my Craig 5 I think is what they call it, to drill some pocket holes. I'll do 4 on the length of the inside of one of the seat boards. Now since I planed my lumber, it's not quite 1.5 inches wide, so I'm going to use 2-inch pocket hole screws. And I've got a chart there that shows me exactly where to set everything, and a guide to show me how to set my bit so that I drill the pocket holes just the depth that they need to be. And now I'm placing my legs just how I want them to be positioned on the bench top. And I drill 2 pocket holes at the top of each one. And I'm making sure that I'm getting them at the right angle and then placing them down where they will go so I don't get confused later. Next I'll do the braces. Now I'm going to drill 2 pocket holes on each end of the long side of the board. And here I am using 2-inch pocket hole screws. If you choose not to plane your lumber, I would suggest you use 2.5-inch pocket hole screws. And now I'm going to go ahead and attach my bench top. I have this Craig clamp that I use for everything, and I really like it. I probably need to get another one, but I'll go ahead and glue that. And then use my Craig clamp. I like to clamp it between the boards to keep it nice and flush right where I'm drilling in the screw. I also have DeWalt clamps, so I figured I might as well use those as well, but it's not totally necessary. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe off the glue that has seeped through. And now I'm going to measure in 1.5 inch from each edge and draw a line so I know exactly where my leg should line up. But stay tuned because I'm gonna have to redo this. So here's where I figure out that that brace is too short. Really, it'd be like way towards the top with the bench top this size. So I'm measuring and realizing that the scrap wood I used was actually 2 by 10 instead of 2 by 8. So instead of redoing my braces, I'm going to go ahead and trim down that bench top. So I'll make each side 7 inches and trim a little off each side. That's probably a better width for the bench anyways. Now I'm measuring again 1.5 inches in from both edges, drawing my lines. And you'll be glad you did this. It'll really help you when you're placing your legs. Much better. So now I'm just placing glue at the top of each leg, and then I'm going to just screw in one of the screws to start off with. This is probably the most challenging part of this project, is keeping that leg lined up and screwing in the screw at the same time because it kind of wants to hop around. I'm just sizing up the brace to make sure it's all working all right, and then I'll go ahead and screw in the second pocket hole screw in each leg. Now I knew this next part would be tricky, putting in this leg brace, because the drill doesn't, and the long drill bit for the Craig screws, won't fit into that space. But I go ahead and measure and draw a pencil line, glue it up, and then use my favorite Craig clamp again to hold on to one side. It would have been useful if I had two to hold on to both sides. See, it doesn't fit, so I run and grab my shorter drill bit, and that will fit. However, it won't fit all the way into the pocket hole, so it doesn't bring the two pieces of wood together like it should. I'm trying all different kinds of stuff, and it's just not working. I finally realized I need to buy a right angle bit, so I just drill them in as far as I can with that short bit. And then I do the other side. It was much easier to use a square to measure down and then go ahead and draw the line instead of trying to hold the brace there and draw your pencil lines. Now I'm realizing that that brace is a little off. So no big deal, I can just go ahead and back those pocket hole screws out and readjust it. Took a little break and purchased a right angle drill bit. And I realize I'm probably using this wrong, but hey, I got it to work. I had to hold on to that piece because I didn't use the base piece that probably would keep that right angle from moving around on you. And I'm realizing I had a screw go through. I must have gotten a little carried away when I was drilling in one of the legs. No worries though, we should be able to back that out with this new fancy right angle drill bit. But once the screws are down in the holes like that, it's kind of hard to get a hold of them. And I was having a lot of trouble there trying to get it to work right. So I took a break and started tightening up the other brace. My husband walked through the garage, so I asked him. Sometimes it just takes, a new perspective to get the job done. We just want to back it out enough so that it comes out of the wood and we can fill that hole with wood putty. So now I'm just going to sand those edges that I had to cut on the table saw with 80 grit. And then I'm rounding over the edges a little bit so when someone sits on it, it's not quite so sharp. I like to pay special attention to the feet so that they don't scrape up floors. And now I'm using pocket hole plugs to fill in the visible pocket holes, which basically for me, I just wanted to do the top of the legs. I didn't bother with the underside of the seat or the braces. And then I filled them with wood fill once the glue dried. And I went ahead and filled any other like knots or any other little indents just because I wanted a sleeker look. A lot of people like that kind of character and stuff, so you can choose whether you leave it or not. And this is the final sand once the wood fill dries. Here I'm priming because if you go ahead and paint, the wood is just going to soak up your paint. If you prime first, you won't need to do as many coats of paint. And I like this Fusion mineral paint. My daughter used it for redoing a chest of drawers, and it just is so nice. I like to start with the feet so that by the time I need to flip it over, the feet are dry enough so that it won't stick to my drop cloth. And I use old baggies to wrap my paintbrush and paint cup in. And then I do the second coat. I do dump a little into a plastic cup for painting, just what I think I'm going to need, because I've been told if you use the jar itself, you could contaminate the paint that's left over. And I don't want to do that. It's expensive paint, so I just pour a little into a cup and use it from there. And here I am styling the bench. The army green bench that matches my pants. And that's right in between my closet and the coat closet in the front door, so it's a great place for people to sit and take off their shoes. Now I'll go ahead and show you the 32-inch bench that I built. And I think this is the one I'll leave in this spot, and I'll find another spot for the green one. And I use Bear as a model. All right, I hope that you have fun with your build.